They are evil in nature as well, the microorganisms. Okay. So certain microorganisms, they are helpful to us, they are friend of ours, but there are certain microorganisms that damages our human body, that are harmful for our environment also. Okay. So see, there are some viruses, bacteria. We take help of a microscope to see a bacteria or a virus, right? And the content basically of the chapter is that guys need to know about the major groups of microorganisms. Okay, it's not working, let me open it again. So you guys need to know about the major classification of microorganisms. So you see, there are millions and billions of microorganisms present on the planet Earth. So for their study, they need to be classified under different groups, right guys? So we have categorized them as bacteria, as viruses, as protozoa, fungus, and algae. Okay. And we discussed about how they are useful to us. So far, we have talked about how they are useful to us. So can you guys tell me how bacteria, how microorganisms can be helpful to us? Like, it has been a general notion that bacteria are harmful for us. That is correct, because the harm done by the bacteria is more than the good done by them, right guys? So you guys tell me, what are the ways in which bacteria are good for us? Yes guys. Yes, Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum. Like, you see, yes, Ahmed, you joined. Yeah. Yes, so I was saying that the bread which we consume, okay, the packed bread which we consume, so in the manufacturing of that bread also certain bacteria are used. And the dahi which you consume, the curd which you guys consume, yeah, chole bhature, idli, these dishes which you consume, which you eat, so these are these dishes you find curd is used. So to make that curd also, certain bacteria are also used, right guys? And certain medicines which we take while we are sick, like the antibiotics, doctor recommend you to take antibiotics when you are sick. So those medicines are also made via help of certain bacteria, right? And then you see, alcohols which are produced on a large scale, on a commercial level, alcohols are produced. So in the production of all alcohol also, certain bacteria are used. Okay. So the first part, so the first two part of the chapter, that is, first we talked about classification of microorganisms. Okay. We talked about classification, like some are categorized as bacteria, some are categorized as viruses, right? Some are categorized as fungus, some of them are algae or protozoa. Okay, so we covered this part in the ongoing batch. Okay, Fatima and Arhan, we covered
Yes,
this thing.
yes, sir.
And another part which we discussed in the class so far was the useful bacteria, the good bacteria. Okay, so in that we basically talked about how in bread making bacteria are used. Okay, and how in alcohol production bacteria are used, and how for production of certain medicines like antibiotics, okay, or the corona vaccine, the vaccines you guys must have taken or your parents must have taken, the vaccines which we took during the corona was ongoing, coronavirus was spreading. So the vaccines, they are also made up of microorganisms. Antibiotics are also made up of microorganisms. So these were some of the utility of bacteria in our day-to-day life. Okay, so we discussed that as well. So today we are going to start the third part of the chapter, that is the harmful bacteria, that is the disease causing bacteria, or basically it's better to say microorganism. So disease causing microorganisms in nature. Okay. All right. So we will discuss the disease causing microorganisms in humans specifically. Okay. And what are the carriers of the carriers of these disease causing microorganisms? Like if a fly sits on your food, or if you get bitten by a mosquito, it's highly that you will catch some disease. Okay. So they are the carriers of microorganisms. Okay. So we will discuss about that also. So it is, you see, it's not only the humans that are that are affected by the microorganisms. Even plants and other animals are not left alone with the wrath of microorganisms. Even they are exposed to these microorganisms. They also catch some diseases. So we will talk about disease causing microorganisms in animals and plants as well. Okay. And then comes food poisoning and preservation of it. Heard of the term food poisoning? Yes. Food poisoning. When food gets contaminated, it becomes toxic and it's not fit to consume. Like if you ever experienced a vomiting, headache, stomach ache, so the most likely cause of that might have been food poisoning. Ever did you guys suffer from this? Like you went to the doctor and it said that which food you consumed? Did you consume the food from the market? Yes, guys?
No, sir.
Hmm. Very good. I'm guessing you guys have good eating habits then. Yeah. Ahmed, what about you?
No, sir. I've never poisoning.
Okay, very good. And then we will talk about the nitrogen fixation and nitrogen cycle. Okay. All right, then let's begin our class then. Now, see this figure here. See these different figures here. The first figure where this child is suffering from measles. Okay. The second figure is of cold, cough, how the virus causing common cold transfer from a healthy person, transfer from an infected person to a healthy person. The third figure is of a man or woman getting bitten by a mosquito here, and it leads to malaria then. Okay. Here this child is suffering from chicken pox. Okay, when the vaccine for chicken pox was not developed earlier, lakhs and lakhs of people used to die from this chicken pox. Okay. And the fifth figure, you see, these all kids were not given with polio vaccine. When they were young, they were not given polio vaccine. So here a child is being given polio drops. Right, guys? Okay. so, so this is just an example of how microorganisms can be deadly for our health. Okay. So first thing is the disease causing microorganisms. Okay. So the book I have taken here, it's just for reference. All right. Okay. So that we don't get to miss anything, no question is left out from anxiety as well. Okay, let's bring this figure over here. Disease causing microorganisms. Ahmed, your exams are from 12th or 16th of June?
13th. 13 June.
13th of June.
Yes, sir.
And you guys,
13th.
Ahmed and Arhan, Fatima and Arhan, you have got your date sheet of examination?
No, sir.
No, not yet. Okay. And
No, sir.
Arhan? Not yet. All right. And What is the portion for you, Ahmed? Only the first three chapters are coming in
Uh,
mathematics.
in mathematics, yes, and in science also, and in social science, 4 chapters are coming.
Okay, and in mathematics, square and square roots and cube roots, that is also part of the syllabus.
No, sir.
Okay, okay. Then. Okay, so disease causing microorganisms. You see, disease causing microorganisms are also called pathogens. Okay, and these pathogens can enter our body through air, through water, or the food, or the contaminated food which we consume. Okay, so first thing is that disease disease look, these disease causing microorganisms have not left me alone. Okay, even I am suffering from cold and cough. So disease causing microorganisms are also called what? Pathogens, right? Pathogens. And they can enter our body via, they can enter our body via air, water, or food we eat. Okay, and what happens once they enter our body? They will start obtaining nutrition from our body, and they will start to reproduce and multiply in number, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how do we catch this disease? How do we get infected from this microorganism? It comes from air, water, or food we eat. But if you were to if you see, if you come in direct contact with an infected person, then you get the disease causing microorganisms. Like if a person is sneezing near to you, say this lady is sneezing here. So when this lady is sneezing here, so when this lady sneezes here, the millions of water droplets released by her into the atmosphere, carrying the common cold virus, spreads around herself. So whoever person is sitting near her, it's likely that when the person will breathe the air, those viruses will enter their body as well, and that person will also catch the disease. Okay, so we get infected from the disease causing, or let's say in short, pathogens. Okay, we get infected from the disease causing pathogens by coming in contact with infected person, by coming in contact with infected person. Okay, so the disease we are talking, which are spread by the microorganism, they are also of two types. Okay, one that can spread from one person to another, and one that does not spread from one person to another. But in most of the cases, the disease caused by microorganisms, it is communicable. It can communicate from one person to another. Okay, and to be very specific, if here when we talk about microorganisms, we are not talking about only bacteria or viruses. It could be other microorganisms also. Like in the previous in the beginning of the chapter, when the chapter was started, other classifications were protozoa, fungus, algae. They can also enter our body and cause different diseases apart from bacteria and virus. Right, guys? Okay. So these pathogens, what are they? Bacteria, virus, okay, or algae or fungus, okay, are carried by why? What? Mosquitoes, house flies, mosquitoes and house flies that spreads disease. Right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So a person who in his body has a disease causing microorganism, he is or she is said to be an infected person. So who will be called an
Yes.
infected person? Yeah, infected person. Person having pathogens in their body, pathogens in their body, or to be more specific, in their blood. Right. So most of the pathogens they will land in the blood. Okay, they will go to the blood where they can move across different parts of the body, because blood is continuously moving through our veins and nerves. So this pathogen can move in blood to different parts of the body and obtain nutrition from different parts. Okay, so that is the infected person. Okay, so those disease which is being caused by the pathogens can spread from an infected person to a healthy person through air, water, or if you share food with that person, or if you come in, or if someone comes in physical contact with that person. So these are called communicable disease. What did I say?
Communicable disease.
Communicable disease. Okay. Now, can you guys list some example of communicable disease? Think of some examples of communicable disease.
Cough, cold,
Yeah.
and the COVID-19
Yeah. Very good.
and flu, malaria,
Yeah.
and dengue.
And dengue as well. Very good. An infected person to a healthy person. Infected
Mm.
person to a healthy person. You guys are supposed to take notes of whatever I'm writing in your notebooks. All right. It's called communicable disease. Okay. So some of the examples are common cold. Yes. Common cold. And as Ahmed said, malaria, and it's coronavirus as well, or COVID. It's better to say COVID because corona is the virus, right? COVID, it is HIV also, right, which is responsible for causing AIDS. Okay, so if a person who's suffering from AIDS virus, from AIDS disease, if the blood of that infected person comes in contact with the blood of a healthy person, so that healthy person also might catch the AIDS disease, right? Some other examples, see the figure here, this chicken pox, this malaria. So chicken pox is also a communicable disease. That's why it is advised to maintain a safe distance from a person suffering from chicken pox. Chicken pox, etc. All right, guys. Okay, then. So now moving ahead, you see the communicable disease, which we see that it can spread in several ways. Okay, like if you breathe air which is contaminated by the disease causing microorganism, in that way you can also catch the disease. Or if you take the infected food, one is via air, another is via infected food. What are the other ways? Infected food or water, or if you use infected injection syringes, infected injection syringe, or if someone uses infected shaving blades. By writing, you guys can understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Infected shaving blades. So if someone uses infected shaving blades, also then these disease can transfer to another body. Or the last one is coming in physical contact with someone. If someone comes in sexual contact with the infected person, then it's highly that person will also catch the disease. Okay. Physical contact. So one needs to take precaution to avoid catching the communicable disease. Okay.
Yes.
So these were the ways of transfer. Okay, so far any confusion?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right. Okay. Now, remember I talked about the carriers of the disease. The agents in our nature that are responsible for carrying a microorganism from one place to another place. Like you see, the house fly that feeds on human waste, that feeds on the dead and decaying components, right? So if you
Yes.
observe a house fly, let me take a picture of house fly. Yeah, just give me a minute. Housefly, housefly legs. So in, if you see the legs of a housefly, yeah, this picture here. See this picture here? How the legs of the housefly are very hairy. The legs of a housefly are very hairy. Yeah, got one. So this is a housefly here. Look, this housefly which feeds on human waste, animal waste, and cow dung and whatnot. Okay, so when this housefly, it sits on food also. If food is left in open, it will feed on the food also. So it is coming from human waste. It was sitting on human waste and other waste, and when it was feeding on the human waste, so the bacteria present on the waste will attach to its hair. There are hairs present on their legs. So the microorganisms, they will attach, they will cling to their body. So when this housefly will sit on food, so those microorganisms are going to they will get transferred to the food. So hence that when that food will be consumed by the person, it is highly that person will get infected, right?
Yes.
So the carriers of the disease are basically insects, or it could be animals also, which transmits disease causing microorganisms to humans. And the interesting thing is that these carriers, they themselves do not catch the disease. Like if you ever heard that the housefly caught malaria or housefly caught common cold? No. So their only role is to help in the only role is to transmit the microorganisms to the food or to water, or basically any component which is being consumed by the humans. Okay, without they themselves getting infected from the disease. So we say carriers of disease. Okay, now name another common name another common carriers of disease. Apart from horsefly, there is another common carrier of disease. What is that?
Somewhat mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes. Very good. The first one is housefly, another one is mosquito. Okay, first let me write about this as well. So carriers of disease, what are they? The insect or animals. It could be animals also. Okay. Like the rodents, the rats, they also carry so many different types of disease. Okay, so if a food is consumed by a rat, and if a person also consumes that food, it is highly that he will catch a disease, right, guys? So we talk about animals also as carriers of disease. So the insects or animals that transmit disease causing microorganism to humans are called carriers of disease. First one was housefly. Okay. And next is a mosquito. Name some of the disease spread by mosquitoes. Which is the most common one?
Some malaria or dengue.
Malaria and dengue. Okay. Do you guys know the name of the mosquito who's responsible for spreading malaria?
Some female mosquitoes.
It's a female mosquito, because male mosquitoes, they do not feed on blood, right? So you see, millions and millions of mosquitoes which feed on pond water, okay, which live in pond water, and especially the female mosquito that feeds on human blood. So what happens? So what happens? Let's say there is a person who's suffering from malaria. All right. So when this female mosquito will feed on the blood of a person suffering from malaria, so it will take the what will happen there? It will suck the blood. It will suck the contaminated blood of that person, right? And when that mosquito is going to feed on the blood of a healthy person, while sucking the blood of that person, it will transfer the malaria causing microorganism to the blood of that healthy person. So in that way, it leads to a spread of malaria, right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now there's a difference in between mosquito and a housefly. Look, in the case of a housefly, microorganisms, they cling themselves to the hair of the legs of hair to the hair of the legs of the housefly. But in the case of a mosquito, microorganisms gets into their blood, right? It is not outside their body, but it is inside their body. It is inside their body. That is the difference. Getting it what I'm saying? Do we have a better diagram? So the main difference lies in between the two, that in one of the carrier, the microorganism sticks to outer body, and in the another carrier, the microorganism gets into their bloodstream. Okay. So this is a female mosquito. Okay, why not male? Because male mosquitoes do not feed on blood. And the scientific name of this female mosquito, it is called female Anopheles. Remember the name, female Anopheles. And this is responsible for spreading malaria. Responsible for causing malaria. So if it bites a person suffering from malaria, this is an infected person A. And if this mosquito bites this person, okay, and then the mosquito bites another healthy person, healthy person B here, so it is most likely that the disease is going to transfer here. So transfer of disease. Now let's talk about the microorganism which is basically responsible for causing malaria. The female Anopheles here, it is only a carrier. But if it were to talk about the microorganism responsible for malaria, that is a protozoan. That is a protozoan. Remember, in the beginning, I told you that there are different classifications of microorganisms. One of them is protozoan. Yes, remember? So there is a protozoan called Plasmodium. Okay, so protozoan Plasmodium is responsible for causing malaria. For causing malaria. So the blood of the infected person, you see, the blood of the infected person, it consists of this Plasmodium. This Plasmodium is present in the blood of the infected person. So this this infected blood is sucked by this mosquito, and when this mosquito will suck blood of a healthy person, it will lead to the transfer of this Plasmodium into the blood of that healthy person. I hope this is a very simple thing. I hope you guys got this, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay then. Okay, and by the way, you guys tell me which mosquito is responsible for causing dengue?
Female mosquito.
That is a female
With
mosquito.
NF4.
I know. No, it's a female Anopheles responsible
Oh,
for
Anopheles.
spreading malaria. I'm talking about
Malignant
which is the mosquito responsible for causing dengue.
female mosquito.
Female, but what is the name? What is the name of that mosquito? It is not female Anopheles. Yes, guys.
Is the name of female mosquito?
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
Some male mosquitoes.
No, it's not the male mosquitoes. Male mosquitoes do not feed on blood. Any idea?
No, sir.
Okay, this is going to be your assignment. Okay, think research about this. Okay,
Okay, sir.
all right then. Now let's talk about what are some disease causing microorganisms in animals. Okay, so there are some disease which spreads to animals also, like foot and mouth disease in cattle. Foot and mouth disease is found in cattle. That is also due to microorganisms. There are other diseases like anthrax, which is caused in animals. Okay, even the plants are not left alone. Even the plants are also infected by certain microorganisms, right?
the
Like, yeah,
the anthrax also caused this for humans too.
yeah, it is caused to humans as well, but that is due to a different virus, a different bacteria. Okay, it is actually the Bacillus anthracis. It is the Bacillus anthracis. If you were to be particular, you will see that the particular bacteria responsible for causing anthrax in animals, it is the Bacillus anthracis. In humans, it is different. Okay, so next thing we guys need to talk about disease causing microorganism in animals. Microbes in animals. So let's talk about disease here and the pathogen responsible for it. So one of the common disease uh, which is found in animals, it is the foot and mouth disease. Mainly you will find this in cattle. Okay, foot and mouth disease. Okay, I don't have a diagram here, otherwise I would have shown you. Okay, give me a minute. Foot and mouth disease. In cattle. Here, see how their mouth and feet becomes. See the first figure here. Foot and mouth disease in cattle. Can you guys see the figure?
Yes.
Yeah. So see the first figure here, this one. Basically, their jaws and teeth have got infected here. Okay, the cavity has got infected here. Okay, and let's see whether we have, yeah, foot here. See this figure here. I'm referring to this figure, this one here. See this one, how their foot have been infected. Yes, guys. Okay,
Yes,
I will attach the figure in the next class. Okay, so you see, this is caused by a bacteria. This is caused by bacteria. All right. No,
Yes.
actually, it is caused by virus. The pathogen responsible here is not a bacteria but a virus. Okay, so foot and mouth disease, it is most common in cattle. Okay, that is in cows, and the pathogen, that is the microorganism responsible for it, it is actually a virus. Okay, so what happens? Basically, the cattle suffers from blisters on his mouth and on his feet. You know what is blisters?
Yes, sir.
Blisters actually, blisters.
Yes, yes, sir.
So the cattle will suffer from blisters on his mouth, on his foot and on his mouth. Okay. Now next disease caused by the pathogens in animals, it is anthrax. Okay, and it is caused by a bacterium. It is caused by a bacteria, right? Okay, if you guys can remember the name of the bacteria, I will write here. It will be better if you get to remember the name also. So that is anthrax. It is Bacillus anthrax. Bacillus anthrax. So if possible, remember the name also of the bacteria responsible for anthrax uh, in animals. That will fetch you more marks in examination. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now another type of disease is caused in poultry birds. In poultry birds, birds which are consumed for meat. Okay. The farm hens. So that is called aspergillosis. That is called what? Aspergillosis. Aspergillosis. Okay. It is caused in poultry birds. You know what is poultry birds? Okay, I will attach the figure of the disease so you will get to have a better idea how the disease looks. Okay. Just by name, you might not be having an idea of how the infection looks. So it is caused by a fungus. Remember this thing. Okay. So aspergillosis is a disease in animals which is caused by a fungus. All right, guys. That's it. You need to know about the disease causing microorganisms in animals. Now, next thing is the disease causing microorganisms in plants. Okay, can you guys name some of the disease caused by microorganisms in plants? Any idea? Like plants also get infected by microbes causing microbes in plants. Like if you see a wheat plant, many times you will see that the wheat plant starts to rust. You know what is rust? How metal object rusts. Similarly, wheat plant also rusts. See the figures here. See the first figure. See this one. the figure right next to it, which I'm referring here. See how the wheat leaves have rusted here. See brown patches over the leaf. This is called wheat rust. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
So,
All right, all right. So that is called wheat rust or rust of wheat simply. Okay. So here what happens? It is caused by fungus. The rusting in the leaves of the wheat, the microorganism responsible for this is a fungus. Okay. And it can basically spread via air. Hence all the crops in the land will get infected from this fungus. So it is very deadly disease for plants, and all the produce of the farmer gets wasted. All his labor is gets wasted if any one or two plant catches this disease. Okay. So it is caused by a fungus, and since it can spread via air, all the crops are going to go to waste. Okay. Now what is some other disease in plants? Can you guys name some of them?
what's it?
Name some other disease caused by microbes in plants. Like wheat rust, it is the most common one. Okay. Another one is here citrus canker. Citrus canker. Okay. Now what is this citrus canker? It is caused by a bacteria. Okay, don't get too confused about the words. Just remember the disease name and remember the pathogen responsible for it. What is pathogen, by the way?
Sir, disease causing microorganisms.
Very good. Okay, so just remember the name of the pathogen and the disease. Just remember these two disease, citrus canker, and the pathogen responsible for it is a bacteria. Okay. Now what happens is in this is that uh, it is also transmitted via air. If I had a figure here, I would have shown it in a more proper way. Let's see if we get a figure. Citrus canker, that's it, no? Yeah, here we got the figure. See, it is most widespread in lemon plants. See how the leaves and lemons have got infected with this bacteria, right, guys?
Yes,
So
sir.
this is how a plant suffering from this citrus canker disease will look like, and it is caused by bacteria, right? Okay, then. Now moving on, we have got food poisoning. Next is food poisoning. Okay, so what is food poisoning here? It is simply the disease caused due to presence of a large number of microorganisms. The most common of them are bacteria and fungus. So if you have left your food open in a if you have left your food in open, what will happen? The bacteria and fungus, most likely they will start to feed on your food. Okay, and there might be presence of some toxic substance in your food as well. Okay, so those bacteria and fungus will act on those toxic substances present in the food. Okay, and it might convert that toxic substances into acid or into some other component, and the food will start to decompose. Hence it will not be good for you to consume it. Let's say I have a piece of food here. Okay, and you know food contains sugar in it as well, right? And sugars are favorite component of food for bacteria, right? So the bacteria, they will start to feed on the sugar present in the food, and it might convert that sugar into some acidic substance. And if someone consumes that food, will it be good for his health?
No,
The person might experience vomiting, okay, or the person might experience stomach ache, okay. So in food poisoning, what happens? There is a presence of a large number of microorganisms like bacteria and fungus in the food, or due to the presence of toxic substances in food formed by the action of microorganisms. Okay, so earlier the food was healthy. Earlier the food was healthy, but as soon as bacteria and fungus started to feed on the food, it led to formation of some toxic substances. The toxic substance could be acid, it could be bases as well. Getting it what I'm saying? If you left the food in open, the bacteria and fungus present in the air, they will feed on that food, and it will convert that food into toxic substances, hence making it unfit for our consumption. That in short is simply the case of food poisoning, right guys? Okay, I hope you guys got this. Any confusion in this one?
no, sir.
Okay. Now in many cases, you see, it can cause serious illness, and in many cases it might lead to death of the person as well. Okay. Now you see the microorganisms like bacteria and fungus, which causes food poisonings. It comes into food either from air, or either from if someone touches the food with dirty hands, or if you keep the food in a unclean container, or if it was eaten by a cockroach, or if it was eaten by some rodents like rats, right? So there's so many ways in which the food might get contaminated. Okay. So there are the two of the most common bacteria which causes food poisoning. One is the Clostridium botulinum, and another one is salmonella. Just remember one of the name. I think that will be sufficient. So I say that bacteria responsible for, let's say, common bacteria responsible for food poisoning are two. One is the salmonella. What is it? Salmonella. Pronounce it. What does it say?
Salmonella.
Salmonella. Okay. And there's one more. If you guys would like, you can remember this one also. Okay. Another one is Clostridium. Clostridium botulinum. Okay. Or it will be fine if you just remember one. Okay. So after you define food poisoning, you can quote any one example. That food poisoning is what? That in food poisoning, what happens due to presence of a large number of bacteria and fungus in our environment? They converts the food into toxic substances which are unfit for our consumption, and the bacteria which is most likely responsible for food poisoning is salmonella. Like this, you can quote the example of the bacteria. So we need to take certain precautions also to preserve our food from contamination, to avoid the food getting contaminated. So we have got certain preservation methods, right? So next comes the concept of preservation of food. Okay, you guys tell me, what are the traditional ways in which we preserve our food? Like you must have seen that your mother might have, you might have seen your grandmothers spreading uh, spreading oil or spreading salt on food. Like when the pickles are made, basically they are preserving that food. Okay, so there are some preservatives added to the food, right guys? or certain foods, they are dried in sunlight so that they can be kept for a long time for consumption. Why? Because when certain foods are dried in sunlight, all the moisture is going to going to evaporate. Since there is no moisture available in the food, so in that medium bacteria will also not grow, right guys? Or food can be preserved from food can be prevented from bacteria by deep freezing also, right?
Yes, sir.
Or they can be preserved from bacteria by boiling also. Certain foods by heating we can kill the bacteria present in them, right? Or if you add common salt in the food, it will not allow for the growth of bacteria in it. Or let's say if you add oil also, so oil will what will do? So oil will basically cut the availability of air. Let's say this is a piece of jar in which I have kept some food. Okay. And above the food, I poured in some oil. So is the food in contact with air above it? Yeah. Yes, guys. Is this food in contact with the air? Because since I have poured in some oil above the food, hence there is no contact of food with the air. Okay, and you know that bacteria even they require air for survival, right guys? So we have got several methods of food preservation, either by deep freezing the food, either by sun drying, or either by heating the food, or by adding salt, or by adding oil, right? So there are some other methods also. There are some chemically made preservatives nowadays also available in the market, right?
Sir, we can also preserve food by pasteurizing.
By pasteurization also, right? Okay, and nowadays you have got certain chemical preservatives also available in the market. Like you see, sodium benzoate can be added to the food, and it can be preserved for a longer period of time. Okay, so the next class when we will discuss in detail about food preservation. Okay, so you guys, your task is going to be write whatever we have discussed so far in the class. Okay, write in your notebook about disease causing microorganisms, explain them with examples. Okay, all right then, and explain food poisoning as well. Basically whatever we have discussed in today's class. Okay, any confusion so far?
No,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. So bacteria present in milk helps in production of curd. Yeah, very good. Okay, I just saw the message. All right then. So revise what we have discussed, because in next class I can post question from anywhere. All right, guys. Okay, then we will meet in next class then.